recording, but,
Is Paul on?
and now it is. Okay,
Paul on?
so what I'll do, a quorum being present, I'll call the meeting of the Bellingham Conservation Commission to order for the evening of Wednesday, March 22nd. Okay. We're going to proceed with the first continuation.
Paul, do some more.
No. I'm looking for the advertisement. Wow.
Hey Cliff, I just want to say I'm in the car, so I can't really pay attention to admitting people for this
Okay,
meeting at the moment.
I'll keep an eye on that.
Okay.
All righty. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single family. No. Not the ad.
Yeah, I have it. Hold on.
Oh,
It doesn't-
wrong here.
Doesn't matter anyway, because Paul just asked for a continuation.
Nothing like letting us know at the last minute that you want a continuation.
But I have it.
And we say too late. We're going ahead anyway.
Well, we need to open the continuation.
So now it doesn't come in. So they gave them all to you. I just hope you do. I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Okay. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will open a continuation of public hearings under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intents to construct a 44 by 16-foot garage with an in-law apartment in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands with the installation of a 1,000-gallon septic tank. So the hearing's open. The administrator and the chair were out in the field. We evaluated the wetland line. The wetland line, as shown on the plans of record, is accurate. We have required that a lot of cleanup be done. There was a substantial amount of material that was dumped in the 25-foot no disturb zone. A few items were actually into the resource area. Much of that material, including brick and stone, woody debris, wire fencing, has been removed. The hut that was shown on the plan of records also needs to be removed, along with all the material that's inside it. That has not been removed as of our last site visit. And I will defer now to the administrator. Apparently she got an email.
Yes, so this afternoon at 4:15, we received an email from Paul DeSimone saying that he was requesting a continuation. The hut has not been removed and he asked for a continuation. It was a very short email. I was not aware of it until just a few minutes ago, and I apologize. I didn't know that he was going to ask. I had sent him, I had called him a couple times in the past couple of weeks and had sent him a couple of emails, and I didn't get any responses. So
what we're requiring from the applicant is assurances that the rest of the cleanup will be completed and the hut will be removed. We're also going to need establishment of a 25-foot no disturbance zone and some supplemental plantings because they're cutting a couple of very large trees to complete the project. The administrator has informed them by email and by phone that these are necessities, and we have not had any response from the applicant. So that being said,
Mr. Chair, do you think that this is a matter, see, rhetorical questions don't feel obligated to answer, that it's a matter of inconsideration to give this last minute notice after not responding to multiple inquiries, or incompetence? It's a tough call. I don't know which way to lean towards. But I'm feeling both there. It's like they had to have known before today, is my opinion, that they wouldn't be able to proceed tonight. There's no way they didn't know until 4 o'clock, especially if stuff hasn't been done. And the lack of response, I didn't realize that they hadn't responded to multiple inquiries throughout the time in between. So my feeling is that we shouldn't proceed with this item at all. Just flat out not proceed with it, whatever way administratively that means in your recommendation. And why should we extend ourselves? But that's my opinion. See if the rest of the board thinks.
you know, the only thing we can do is close the hearing and issue a denial. And
Based on
I
failure
don't,
to comply.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, how do we base that on? I mean, what's the terminology we use? Base failure to comply with requirements?
Well, I think, Mike, that we need to, in this particular instance, I think we need to work with the applicant and to try to move the project forward. I think they're very close. I don't know why this happened today. But I would encourage the board to please consider continuing the hearing and giving the applicant an opportunity to present the revised plans so that we can move the project forward.
Do you
This
have
is
any
the-
reason? Sorry,
Sorry, when did they request a continuation to?
This, he didn't.
So,
I was going to suggest to the 12th of April.
do you have any reason?
I was gonna suggest something in June.
Well, we can't be punitive.
Mr. Chair, Madam Administrator, do you have any reason to, based on your failure to get any kind of response from both the applicant and his representative, their representative, all in the last, as you said, several weeks, that they really want to move the project forward? I mean, I would think they would try. We're trying to do our part and more, bending over backwards, being understanding. And it wasn't just today's lack of notice I'm thinking of, it's lack of response to your attempts to reach out to facilitate their project in their interest. You know, it's just,
Well,
Sure, I understand that, Mike. But in all fairness, I have not been in touch with the applicant because I didn't have an email or a phone number. It was Colonial Engineering.
oh, I misunderstood when you said that you've been trying to reach for several weeks by phone and email, and no response. That was just Paul. Okay.
Mhm.
bottom line is that that there was encroachment into 25-foot no disturbance zone, and the owner of the property is removing the material. So that work has commenced. But remember, this is a complicated process because we had a situation where they were filing for an unattached in-law apartment, which does not meet zoning. Now, we don't do zoning, but you know, under our local bylaw regulations, it has to be permittable under all local planning and zoning laws. So there's work that's going on behind the scenes to determine what kind of project they can build there. So I think that's probably where the delay is. I would recommend that we just continue and that we instruct the administrator to let them know that avoidance is not compliance, and that you got to talk to us and you got to give us this information, because otherwise, as our vice chair said, Well, we'll continue to June. Any further discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of Wednesday, April 12th at 7:15.
So moved.
Right,
Second,
Neil. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
No, I was able to determine everybody, and that's a unanimous vote. All right,
Thank you for your consideration, folks.
so we have a hearing coming up, but prior to that hearing, we have an administrative item to take care of. I'm sure all of you are well aware of the fact that on Wednesday, March 8th, we closed the hearing for Prospect Hill Estates. At the time we closed the hearing, that was the only action that was taken. Based on my determination of a consensus of the board, I would like to get a formal motion to, we are still within the 21-day period for issuance of an order of conditions. I would like that order of conditions to be a denial. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to deny the Prospect Hill Estates project based on the fact that there was a lack of information that was required by the commission and that the applicant did not demonstrate that they were able to meet the performance standards for all the regulatory impacts that were proposed.
So moved.
Ariane?
Yeah.
second,
Neil? We'll do a roll call on this one.
Mr. Chair, quick point of clarification to make sure I understood the full extent of that motion. There's no reference there to the failure to agree to comply with the regulation regarding the peer funding.
That's part of the regulatory, not meeting the regulatory standards, yes.
Okay, that's implied in there. Okay, all right,
In
included.
fact, what we'll do is by week's end, we'll send out a draft for everyone to take a look at. There will be two documents. One, a denial under the local bylaw regulations, and one, a denial under 310 CMR, the wetlands protection regulations.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Okay, roll call. Brian?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Neil?
aye,
Noel?
Aye.
Ariane?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. We will continue to proceed with the development of this complicated permit. We still have 15 minutes before our next continuation. And
Maybe we can do site visits.
so moving ahead, this weekend, the 25th, we
Oh,
have,
that's not this weekend.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Maple Street.
Holy mackerel.
this weekend, on the 25th, we have a site walk for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for Maple Street. And I think Michael has already agreed that he can make that.
Yep.
Neil has already stated he is not available. Noel or Ariane, are you available for this one?
I'm not sure at the moment.
It depends on your COVID test.
It depends on an event that I have with my mom.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And Brian is still recovering from, or still in concussion protocol. This is going to be a fairly complicated wetland delineation. We have done this one before, probably how many years ago?
I think it was in 2014.
2014.
Mm.
So 9 years ago, we found that there was extremely high groundwater on the site, 1.5 feet below the surface. And as a result, there was emergent wetland vegetation upslope, upgrading it from where the main body of the resource area is. And we've already been cautioned by the applicant's representative that we can anticipate doing a lot of soils to determine the wetland line. But as we always do, it'll be a 3-part evaluation: hydrology, soils, and vegetation. So we are scheduled for 8:30 on site, and we'll do the best we can. If we run into a situation where there are disagreements on resource area delineation, it's the commission's prerogative to engage peer review for a more comprehensive evaluation. So I think Mike might be the only one who can make that one, unless Ariane or Noel has an opportunity. It'd be a really good opportunity to get some field work done. Also, we will be getting to the SNET estates, but we in the field, and this is outside the hearing. When we get to the hearing, I'll do a complete workup on what occurred in the field, but we have determined that we're going to need a site walk for a reevaluation of the resource area off of Lake Street and Railroad Street, and that site walk was scheduled for 4:15. And I think that Mr. Stanley and Mr. O'Haron will concur that it's going to be a fairly complicated review based on what we saw in the field. Who might be available for Saturday the 15th at 8:30?
I'll give it my best shot,
Well, we appreciate that.
see how it goes.
That's all.
That's all we can ask.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't have anything on for the 15th as yet.
Nothing says fun like site work. Okay, that would be very good, because that gives us some continuity, because there'll be 3 members and the administrator who are going to cast an eye on the renewed wetland delineation line. And I don't want to get into it in too much detail until we get to the continuation, but that's good. So we'll officially schedule that at the hearing, but it's nice to know who can make that.
Mr. Chair, we don't have anything scheduled for the 1st of April, right? Because that's Saturday, I think I'm gonna be out of town. I just want to be sure. I thought you had said that we weren't gonna schedule anything for that week. You have other things, so I answer.
Okay.
No, we're not available on the 1st.
Okay, good. I'm not either. No fooling. Get it? No fooling.
For the
Okay.
first time in 11 weeks, we are not available on Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention to Ariane and Noel that if you could make the 15th, that would be wonderful. So just try to work that in if at all possible. All right.
April 15th,
Yes. Mhm. I know it's kind of
I'll-
far away, but
I'll be in the Azores.
oh, I knew you were
Oh,
going
okay.
somewhere, but I didn't know when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a special one-day return flights back up to Boston.
Take me virtually, you know.
Well,
I don't think
I don't think
so.
that's going to work.
Nice try.
Well, this is hands-on.
I don't
Out of the country. That's
think you really want to do that, Ari.
those rates on their phone bill will be quite high.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm. So,
All right. So that is all the outstanding information that we have. So we'll prepare for the next continuation.
I think this is it.
We are a couple minutes early. Noelle disappeared there. I think we're getting her back now.
There she is.
There she is.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll proceed with the next continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold public hearings in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family subdivision, roadway, and appurtenances, including a stormwater management system to support a 6-lot residential subdivision entitled Snet Trail Estates, located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated and isolated vegetated wetlands at Assessor's Map 80, parcel 9-1, 0 Railroad Street, Bellingham. Dan Merkin, Legacy Engineering, Main Street, Millis, Mass, has submitted the filing on behalf of Michael Burr, Lake Street, Bellingham. The continuations will be held online via the Zoom option on Wednesday, March 22nd at 7:30. We are a couple minutes early, but that's okay. So now we'll proceed with a recap of what occurred. For the record, on 8:30, March 18th, Saturday morning, site inspection was conducted by our Vice Chairman, Neil Stanley, Mike O'Haron, myself, and our administrator. We commenced the evaluation, immediately moved some flags outward from a resource area that was flagged in a low-lying isolated vegetated wetland to the east of the roadway. We proceeded along a line to an impoundment that had all of the markings of a vernal pool, which will be investigated in the future to see if it is indeed a vernal pool. From that vernal pool, we followed a channelized flow of water, which was flagged to a point where the flagging stopped and the water continued. We did some soils. The soils were very borderline hydric. There was very little vegetation, but based on the presence of hydrology, we followed the channel to the low point where we found that there was a collection of water. There was wetland shrubs. There was some herbaceous vegetation consisting of sedges, some rushes, cinnamon, and sensitive fern. We felt that area, which was also fed by some kind of a channel that had been hand dug in the past, had sufficient enough qualifiers to be determined a wetland resource area. There was some technical discussion in the field, and the commission offered, as is allowed by regulation, to have the area peer reviewed. And with further discussion, the applicant's representatives decided to reflag the area in question in its entirety and call it a regulated resource area. So, that being the case, we allowed the applicant sufficient time to be able to perform that task. And that's why we have the site walk scheduled for April 22nd. Again, on April 1st, the commission is the chair and the administrator are not available on the 1st. And on the 8th, it's Easter weekend, and we are not going to be going out then. On the 15th, we have,
That's the one.
that's the one.
Mhm.
So we're continued to the 15th, which is the next available date. So
Mr. Chair, just for the record, you had mentioned the 22nd at some point in time.
I'm
there.
sorry.
Just
what I
make sure
meant
it's clear
was-
for the record.
Right, it's the 15th.
Right. Okay.
Do you have does anyone have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to ask if the applicant one for the next site walk. Mark both the front entry area and the side borders of the crossing that's gonna be put in where the road, the cart path is, crosses over that low area.
Yeah,
I had some discussions asking the applicants that were on site there what the size, height and so forth was, but I think especially if other members of the commission are there on the next sidewalk, it'd be helpful to be able to see that delineated. It's going to be a fairly large fill of, and
they're gonna be bringing the roadway up to grade there, and they're talking about putting in a couple of pipes or culvert to take that channeled water. Now, clearly, based on their observations from just 2 months ago, there was no flow, so it's an intermittent channel. So we'll have to wait for his engineering to determine pipe sizing and all of that. But I think that the plans of record show what the fill is there.
well, when they describe that it's going to be 4 to 5 feet high, 50 feet wide, and sloped 3 to 1 or whatever the rate, the slope rate with grass on it. Yet it's not supposed to impact that area's flow too much. I just think at least some stakes would be helpful for us to visualize that a little bit better, since nothing was marked at the time there.
We'll instruct Ian to take
Yeah,
to
okay.
instruct them.
I
We'll
can-
ask Ian to instruct them
I'll-
to mark that out a little better in the field.
Yeah, I concur with that, marking that out, please.
Sure, because I when we were there, we didn't see anything. It was a corduroy road. We saw.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, our observation was that it's wet enough, often enough that they went to the trouble to install a corduroy road across it.
Right.
Right.
All right. So that demonstrates the presence of historical hydrology.
Mm,
Okay.
right.
All right. So that's I think that's an efficient recap of everything that we saw in the field. If no one has anything to add, I'll entertain a motion to conduct a site walk at 8:30 on April 15th and to continue the hearing to the evening of April 26th at 7 o'clock.
So moved.
Neil,
second,
Michael. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ariane?
Aye.
Okay, we got everybody. That's a unanimous vote. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, so they're gonna come at 7:35.
Okay.
Yeah, I had contacted the team
Perfect.
to ask.
Mhm.
I don't know if Austin's on yet. What's the thought? Maybe he's not gonna be here tomorrow.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what he told me. Oops.
Okay, because we had a continuation and we actually had two continuations. Administrator contacted our next continued hearing to see if they were amenable to starting a little earlier. They were, as we usually do when these kinds of situations arise. If someone from the general public should attend later and request information, we'll give them a recap of what occurred. And we also have an informational presentation, which is not a regularly scheduled hearing, so they have the flexibility to be able to do this without further consideration. So that being the case, I will proceed with opening the next continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a 700,000 square foot warehouse facility with associated site appurtenances on a 158 acre parcel located off of Hartford Avenue, Bellingham, and identified as assessors map parcels 30-73-1, 24-12, and 31-3. The project proposes temporary and permanent impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act of 661 square feet of bordering vegetative wetland, 95 square feet of bank, 561 square feet of land under water bodies, and a 100-foot buffer zone with proposed mitigation, and is located within the riverfront area to Spring Brook. The project also proposes impacts to resource areas jurisdictional to the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw regulations, including 28 linear feet of bank, 15,274 square feet of land subject to flooding, bordering or isolated, 651,879 square feet of buffer zone, 39,357 square feet of isolated vegetative wetlands, 82 square feet of land under water bodies, and 2,484 square feet of vernal pools with proposed mitigation. Andrea Kendall, LEC Environmental Consultants, Worcester, Mass, has submitted the filing on behalf of Jeff Curley, Bellingham 4 Associates, Chestnut Hill, Mass. The continuations will be held online via the Zoom option on March 22nd at 7:35. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Andrea Kendall with LEC. I am here tonight replacing the role for Austin. He's not able to attend. So I'm not going to be as entertaining. I'm not going to have the bald head to make fun of. So we
But we don't
will.
make fun of that. We're careful about that.
Okay. Well, you should have seen his shining head the other day on screen. It was priceless. So with me tonight, as you might see, it's Jeff Curley, Molly Gasperi, Brian Madden from LEC. So we had a site walk on Saturday, March 11th. I thought I would just summarize what we observed, the takeaways, and some of the next steps.
Sure, Andrea, can we share your screen? No. Can you share your screen?
Yes.
Noel,
Right now I'm disabled, but once.
we're gonna ask Noel to work on that.
Okay.
Is she still driving?
No, I'm home now.
Oh, okay.
But right now it says the host has participant screen sharing disabled, so that might be something on your end, Cliff.
Now hold on a minute here. Okay,
That's because I'm not the co-host because I had to log out and log in again.
okay, got it.
You can make your co-host.
How's that?
Still not able.
Yep, I can take care of it now.
Oh, thank you, Noel.
No problem. You're all set.
Okay. Perfect. Great. Can everybody see my screen?
It's blank right now.
Coming up. There it is.
There you go.
Good. Okay. So I'm going to just keep this viewport. This is the area that we focused on. So again, we walked in from the Home Depot area into the site. We stopped off at the stream, proposed stream crossing upgrade area, reviewed the wetland replication area again down to the north of the crossing. There were, no questions about that particular replication area.
That was an appropriate area, but what we did ask is that you avoid a few of the large trees that were present.
That's right.
And
Okay.
so it might be a situation where that area morphs in the field in order to preserve. We don't want to, want to cut down large trees to make a wetland replication.
Right. Yeah, and we can update with a note on the plan to indicate that, just so it's clear during construction that there would be some adjustments. And we continued east, or somewhat east. To be honest, I forget if we went north or south, but I'll just go south as if we did do that. We walked through the existing cart path and stopped and verified the proposed buffer zone restoration area in this location between the two roadways. We then walked south and looked at the proposed buffer zone restoration area that corresponded with grading of the roadway, and those stakes were in the field. We also observed additional opportunities for buffer zone mitigation closer outside this limit of work footprint and closer to the wetland. So we'll supplement that area as well for buffer zone.
Yeah, right where your little band
Enhancements.
is there. Yeah, outside the 25-foot no disturbance zone, in between the 25 and 50, I think you're right. There were areas of sparse vegetation that could be.
Yeah, I think this area was, and maybe Brian can correct me, somewhat of a cart path footprint as well. Maybe if I recall correct, I don't know if I recall correctly, but the water line kind of goes in this general area as well. But we can review that specifically.
Yeah, we don't
We-
want to be planting any trees on top of that.
Well, and I should clarify, at this point, the proposal is to, it's not an active water line. The goal would be to officially relocate it into the project development footprint and leave the remnant water line in place and abandon it, so that there would be no further need to traverse with equipment and whatnot within these forested areas.
Well, that's a good thing, but I thought that was a raw water main where they were pumping water from Town Well 12 to be treated up at Stallbrook.
And I don't know if it's active. My understanding it's not active. It was installed and never implemented, but
Austin would know best, Cliff, but I think Andrea's right. I think we obviously need to discuss this with Jesse now that Don is gone, but our understanding was it's sort of operating in a reserve capacity now, and they only are engaging it if necessary, and it hasn't been engaged. It's sort of on a standby and isn't operating right now. But we'll certainly confirm that and coordinate with DPW.
Yeah, we're going to confirm that. Jesse's going to
Yeah.
be on later tonight.
Yep.
So we'll ask him, because even if they're using it as a standby, that means that if it's not being treated, it has to be treated for iron and manganese removal. It's hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't have that not being treated, but we'll find out.
okay.
Okay.
We then made our way over, and I'll zoom in to the proposed wetland replication area adjacent to the C series wetland. We discussed the grading, the intent that this would be separated from the C series and the grading would be offset, and then depressional areas would be created and then sloped up. We heard a couple of things from that conversation, and then had a conversation and discussed one other thing that we wanted to touch on, that the request from the commission is that to do additional test pit in this area to verify groundwater levels, and we'll go ahead and do that. Secondly is, as a result of constructing this replication, that the offset buffer zone from that there would be essentially, not much buffer zone remaining. So we heard that, once everything is firmed up in terms of data collection for this area, and then the stormwater basin that we'll discuss in a second, then we'll look at the possibilities to further refine the developed footprint in that area. We also talked about, and Brian more eloquently discussed, that our overall mitigation goal was to preserve as much forested area as possible, so that we were seeking less than a 2-to-1 wetland replication area mitigation. And that was our goal and objective, and our thought behind that was to look at the overall mitigation package as it relates to conservation restriction and other buffer zone enhancements, and then incorporating into that as well as the replication, that we would ask the commission to look at the whole package when you discuss whether, the relief from meeting that 2-to-1 replacement. So I don't know if the commission has any thoughts on further thoughts on that, or if you want to continue that. We're also curious, what Matt's
Yeah, I
input
think what,
on that would be as well.
I think what we'll do, I mean, let's move to the basin, because we found a very interesting geological circumstance there. And
Yeah.
so we'll talk about that, and then we can come back to the to that vernal pool area.
Okay. We then walked up to the proposed surface stormwater basin in an area that's kind of higher in elevation than in this undulating topography, and it was certainly higher than other surrounding areas. We observed an area where there's water stained leaves, looked at the soils, didn't notice any redoxomorphic features. I encountered kind of a hard pan or layer of refusal between a foot and a half below the ground surface. So that was another area where test pit will be done to confirm whether that confining layer is just limited in scope, in terms of and that if you do puncture through that, it's the remaining soil representative of what we're finding elsewhere.
Yeah, because actually I think that we found redox immediately above that area of that
Refusal. Yeah.
impediment. Yeah, the area
Yeah.
there was redox right above that, but that area was only about a foot and a half below the surface. Yeah, and I think what the commission was feeling in the field was that somewhere along the line there was some sort of a physical barrier in the ground, whether it be clay or rock. It felt like rock, didn't it? Didn't it feel like ledge? Something hard.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out, when they go
so-
out there.
And you agreed to notify Ann when that testing is going to take place, because for no other reason, I'm curious. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Austin's
that?
gonna be putting, we'll be putting together, also in conjunction with, the stormwater review, a test pit plan. So he'll submit that to Anne, let her know, when that's gonna be scheduled. And hopefully, you'll be able to join.
Yeah, we would like to do that.
Okay, great.
All right, so
I-
maybe now what we can do is we can go back, we can take a look at that area where the vernal pool area is, and then and perhaps get to the discussion about, the extension of the conservation restriction in the areas that we would need to see, and that we've mentioned that we would need to see protected in order to provide additional, more robust information. I mean, in mitigation, and that would be the abandonment of that cul-de-sac road and the extension of the CR to the property edge at the campground. Because there are a lot of resource area impacts there, and the determination on whether or not or what the status of the ground itself is at that cul-de-sac hasn't been made. But when we look at 2,500 square feet of vernal pool alterations, and we look at 650,000 square feet of buffer zone alterations in an acre of isolated vegetated wetland alterations that are occurring within the building footprint, the areas that we're seeing for enhancement don't come close to mitigating for those impacts. And if we look at with some specificity at the area that you're proposing for the vernal pool replication, I think it was Mike O'Haron in the field who mentioned that this vernal pool replication really isn't replication, because what we have inside the building footprint are functioning vernal pools. And what we're proposing to do is to provide an opportunity for the species that are already there to potentially expand their range. But I think Michael's point was, and I'll let him speak to that in a minute, but I think Michael's point was that this really isn't vernal pool replication. It's more of a expansion of what's already there. So these are some of the things, that we need to discuss moving forward. And, I don't know when the appropriate time is. We mentioned it before, but I think that the picture is becoming a little clearer for us now. And we can start wherever you would like. Michael, did you want to add anything to that vernal pool area?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Andrea, can you zoom out to the overall site where you can still see the area we're talking about, the replication of two vernal pools somewhere on that top corner there? But yeah, it's probably a little bit up. Okay, yeah. So my feeling was we're doing a lot of squeezing a ton of activity into an area that's already doing pretty well. As a couple of vernal pools side by side there, trying to enhance, restore, enlarge, whatever, and cutting down trees and so forth, and reducing the buffer around the edge there to almost nothing. I'd say little or nothing. My first thought was, why are we doing so much work in that one area that's doing well to replicate or to mitigate and create a offsetting wetlands replication area when we have a huge site that we aren't looking anything to the right of the B and C of the warehouse over into the E area, let's say, for example. I'm not saying that there's a spot I have in mind, because I don't, but it's a very large site. Instead of squeezing that replication into an area, I know we like to expand, have wetlands areas linked in some way that helps with the habitat for the plant animals and so on. But in this case, I think we ended up doing too much in too small an area to try to create, and it won't even meet the 2-to-1 because you're looking for a waiver on that. Instead, why can't we look further over to somewhere else in the site? It doesn't have to be that we're helping that area or trying to help that area. Create a new one somewhere.
Yeah, and we are. This plan doesn't truly show it, but I can bring up that another plan that does. So overall, this top one is one. Here, another one adjacent to the M series wetland. And then we were expanding wetland areas here. On top of that, we were going to utilize existing like gravelly degraded area. And let me see if I can pull that plan up. I wish I was more adept at doing this, but I don't.
Austin's got the evening off.
Yes.
But we are proposing another replication area. Do you see my screen, or do I need
No,
to
we see
stop?
it.
Okay, perfect. This is another area further. This is
Sorry, Andrea,
also-
we see the plan that we were discussing a
Okay.
minute and a half ago. If you have another plan that you're pointing to, that's,
Yeah, I'm gonna stop share and then share again. I've never really gotten the hang of all this, so.
it's a fair trade-off.
Okay.
You're a little slower with the plans, but Austin's not here. I'll take it.
Okay. So I am sharing another plan from the plan set that shows another replication area. I will zoom in. This doesn't show the flag numbers or whatnot, but this is sort of plan southeast off of the out of view from the other plan set, but this is another replication area for really specific to the vernal pool habitat. So creating two nodes of pools proximate to existing wetland, and then down here I think is the other certified vernal pool is further to the southeast, and maybe Brian would correct me. I hope he does. Takes the opportunity if I misspeak. So that's not, what we saw in the field the other day isn't the one and only. And we're happy to talk about the overall mitigation package. I can share with you to date the conservation restriction areas that we're proposing. And then we can talk about how that feels, other areas of opportunities as well. If you recall, when we first came in, there was sort of like the cluster of the X, G, and what else? What was that? There was another cluster of X, W, and G, and with some vernal pool activity in there. When the shops were proposed, there was a substantial wetland replication area in there. Our goal, as Brian stated, is we don't want to touch that area, and because of we want to maintain that upland habitat. So, and we're not working in that area at all. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
So Andrea, if I understood what you were saying there, if you were to do nothing in the area with the two wetland vernal pools at the top of the site there that we've been talking about heavily working on, except clean out the debris and remove, some of the obligative tires that are festooned throughout the area. Maybe enhance that little ridge and stop the ATVers from cutting in between them by doing some blockage of some sort there, but basically left it alone. What would that impact be for areas that you're claiming in that part of that site to replicate or enhance and enlarge, in my view, rather than, because the vernal pool's already there, you're not creating a replication area so much, as I said before, or cooked it, as in my view, as just you trying to expand the existing one a little bit. What would that mean for these other sites that you're talking about? Is that another site need to be created in order to come closer towards that 2-to-1 that's required, or not?
Well, I don't have the exact numbers. Currently, we don't meet the 2-to-1. So if the commission is flexible with what mitigation means to you, and whether you would want conservation, more areas of conservation to offset. Currently, we're proposing the White Cedar Swamp as part of that mitigation package, and other areas of the Charles River wetland system, buffer area. So,
But
on
those
Mass,
areas, the White Cedar Swamp can't be, that's off the table because it can't be utilized anyway. So that's not really mitigation because it's exists and it can't be developed.
I would
The
assume the
Charles River
Charles River
Swamp,
watershed, the same
the
thing.
Charles River Swamp it exists. It can't, it's not mitigation. What we're looking at here, and one of the things we pointed out in the field, along the roadway on the way to the cul-de-sac, you had a wall next to a very active vernal pool, and it was in the 25-foot no disturbance zone. So, we're creating impacts to areas that are already being utilized. And I think what the commission's saying is we need to provide more robust mitigation, and that means more preservation. And I understand, I thought that we were reviewing this for the use of a warehouse, but apparently in conversations with the planning board, there may be some flexibility required by the developer for future use for perhaps more additional parking. But when you look at maximum utilization of the site, there's a very simple solution, and that would be shortening the building by 25 feet, providing more parking up on the site next to the building. I think that the request is pretty reasonable when you weigh the amount of impact that's being requested here. And by your own admission, you're finding difficulty meeting those standards because you don't want to be cutting down forests to provide mitigation. It's something we mentioned it earlier. I think it's something that needs careful consideration moving forward, because it's something that's going to be an integral part of the permit moving forward. So, and it might be helpful, and we've seen the plan, Andrea, that you presented, but to see it in the overall view of the site, it's something that might not be required if there's preservation. But please don't tell us that preserving the White Cedar Swamp is mitigation or providing protection for the Charles River wetland is mitigation, because it's not.
no, and I appreciate that. I think, let me see if I can bring up another exhibit plan. Just want to give the opportunity to review what's currently proposed, just so we can get that. Here I go again.
Take your time, take your time.
Okay,
You're doing better than I could do.
here we go. Okay, so this is currently the CR plan, the area, and I'm going to zoom in. This one particular CR is 40, just over 42 acres.
And that was pretty much what was proposed with the shops.
Yeah, it's a little bit
acres
more.
larger, Cliff.
Yeah,
4 acre
yeah.
difference.
So it does include upland areas, as well as wetland M, which is the White Cedar Swamp. It's contiguous to other conservation restrictions that were preserved as part of the Crossroads development, and then further to the plan northeast is another CR that increased from for just over a couple of acres to 2.58 acres. And yep, that does include a kind of like an upland knoll, and then portions of the wetland. So it's not only wetland area. So just wanted to point that out.
Mhm.
This is an additional area with the 3 or 4 wetlands, some of which, and wetland A, some of them function as vernal pools. We are not proposing any work in here, unlike during the shops. There was direct impact and then some additional replication. So some of these were going to be completely altered and impacted. So just to compare what was previously approved to what, is on the table today. So I just wanted to point that out. For consideration, we can, discuss whether that's something that we could include and expand as part of the CR. That's certainly something that's on the table. And then in terms of the replication area that we're proposing, I think it's down in this segment. This is, I think, I forgot the letter, maybe T or something, that this is the existing certified vernal pool. And so putting an additional vernal pool area in this spot where there's existing cleared low functioning habitat here, we thought that would be an added amenity there.
Okay, I think we understand that. And I think that you understand that it was our understanding that the access roadway from North Main Street was going to be abandoned, and yet we see that that potential has been preserved, and a section of roadway that can be easily extended still exists. And I think that that's something that we're going to need to discuss at length moving forward. So we have another meeting coming up shortly. I know you're going to want us to get out there again to take a look at. Oh, well, Andrea, you said you were going to mention what we might want to look at next. Make some
Yeah.
suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, it was just going to be the other mitigation areas, the other proposed vernal pool area down to the southeast. And then, we've already kind of looked along this area of the Charles River wetland system. And then, but we have buffer zone enhancements there along the graded slope. And then there's just other mitigation areas along wetland M and back in this areas here. So
Remember, Andrea, the mitigation areas along the Charles River wetland are not mitigation areas, because you're cutting down a forest and then you're going to plant grass and shrubs. That's not mitigation.
it's more restoration, where
It's more
we are
restoration.
we are restoring the graded slopes. And so yes, thank you for
Yeah, I don't know
that
that the
clarification.
slopes are forested. When we were out there looking at them, they were fully forested. I wouldn't call those slopes interior away from the wetland. They are degraded, but exterior, they're fully forested. So
Right. No, I mean, in terms of the limit of work, we're restoring the slopes that are associated with the grading.
right.
So that's, yeah,
So you're stabilizing the slopes.
we're stabilizing and revegetating them
Okay.
with,
I think we can agree with that.
yeah.
I think we can agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I know you need to get to your other meeting, but I just want to respond to a couple of things. And I think we want to get the test pitting plan nailed down and get that
That's important.
to the administrator and get that on the calendar. We'd love, as Andrea and you suggested, to get out here to take a look at some of these other areas. I think we hear you loud and clear about the opportunity for refinements here. We're soaking up all the information we're getting in the field when we're out there. I would tell you that we are, the size of the building, the amount of parking that's required to support a prospective end user here. We do not have an identified end user here. As you know, we're very closely connected with the roadway improvement project. We're trying to develop a project here that frankly, it can be an economic contributor to that very important improvement in the Hartford Ave, North Main Street corridor and the interchange with 495. So we're trying to work within those constraints as well. I hear you loud and clear on the parking requirements and these refinements and the specific locations that you're asking us to look at. Rest assured, we're looking at that. We'd like to do the test pit information, gather that test pit information, and once we have that and have a firm understanding of where groundwater is, it can come back confidently with some of these refinements that you're suggesting. I think we can find, pardon the pun, common ground on this. But I do think the parking is very important, notwithstanding the comments that the peer reviewer offered. But we are looking at a reduction in number, perhaps an increase in compact spaces that together could help to refine the limit of pavement here in a few important places. Give us an opportunity to do that. In the meantime, we'll get the test pits underway and we'll get another walk scheduled if that's the commission's pleasure.
Okay. That sounds like a plan to me.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Here, a quick question. The area to the right of the top, we see at 495, the triangle there, to the right of that, is that the property line? That's not the property line. The property of the applicant is much further to the right, goes much further to right along 495, correct?
What are you pointing to the?
To the right of the triangle, no, to the right, swing right, keep going. Yeah, to the right of the red triangle area there, that line that runs down from there, that's not the property line, correct?
It
It
is.
That's the
part
Corps of
property.
Engineers land.
The Corps of Engineers is on the other side, Mike.
Oh, it's to the right of that area is all Corps of Engineers?
That's right.
Correct.
I thought the site continued on for a bit more, but that's what I'm asking, okay. And the area below that the line goes down towards that round circle, that's all, that unmarked area, that's all. part
Core.
of it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the core too?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so the property line then is the dark line. To the left there, right? Yeah, that one,
Yes.
okay. Okay, all right, I wasn't following that. I thought some of that was perhaps from some of the lot, the applicant's property, and in which case maybe that could be explored for some replication possibilities as opposed to squeezing them in existing areas. Okay, that clarifies it, thank you.
All right. So I think, Matt, do you have anything to add?
Hello, everyone. No, thank you, Andrea, for the summary. That's been useful. I am really interested in this additional vernal pool replication area to the south. One thing that we talked about in the field and is sort of further put on the table with that is the idea of utilizing available non-breeding habitat for creation of new wet habitat. And in a circumstance like this, it's most likely non-breeding habitat that's the limiting factor for amphibians, at least. So that should play into our discussion. And that it'll be interesting to see that southern component. I don't think we've gone south of the cul-de-sac yet. So yeah. So I think as we go, sort of when we start counting beans and thinking about like how many square feet here and there, and this discussion that we're having around whether we can count the regraded, graded slope revegetation as restoration of buffer zone, those kinds of questions we're going to have to kind of get into the weeds on, but it feels like we're not there yet because we've got a lot to discuss still. So
All right, so we can't get back out on site until the 22nd of April.
We'll take it.
But we're hoping.
Sure you don't want to mull that over, Jeff?
We could probably see some vernal pool action out there.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think you might be available for that?
I am scheduled to visit the printing museum in Lawrence at 10:30 that morning, but I suspect I can make adjustments to that.
But we're a long way from Lawrence.
Yes, we are.
We do an
A good
8:30.
take though, Matt.
We do an 8:30 meeting. There's gonna be 8:30 site walk is gonna be.
I'll work it out. I don't want to hang that up.
All right, so because we're gonna go out on the 22nd, what I'm proposing is to continue to the evening of the 26th. So I'll entertain a motion to conduct a site walk on Saturday, April 22nd, and continue the hearing to the evening of April 26th at 7:30.
So moved.
Carry on.
Second.
Brian. Let's speak loudly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was everyone. That's a unanimous vote. Okay.
Thank you all.
Ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen, thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Andrea. Okay. So,
I think I'll take my leave. I don't see anything else that I can help you with tonight, but as always, a pleasure to see you all.
Thank you so much, Matt.
have a great weekend.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes,
you.
enjoy.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. We'll see you.
All right. So I see Jean from Ty and Bond is here,
I am here.
and we appreciate this. Many years ago, I used to run, and I remember running along there and seeing the outlet pipe going into the lake and thinking that's not too healthy, and actually running through there and having to deal with the local beach Nazis because I wasn't a member of the Lake Hiawatha Association, but checking it out and seeing, the amount of scouring and silt deposition, and that was years ago. And we know that there's a problem here. In
Okay.
fact, you're dealing with the Grand Canyon of Bellingham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it feels like.
It is. Okay. Ariane, Noel, can you let Jean share her screen, please?
Sure, I think that'll be all
Hi,
set.
Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
Welcome to the club.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Is my screen being shared?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
We're getting.
How about now?
You got it.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Jean Christie. I'm a senior engineer with Ty and Bond. Here with Jesse tonight, and maybe others from DPW. I know we may have invited them, but if they are here, they can chime in as they need to. Here to talk tonight informally about some drainage improvements to the Lake Hiawatha area. As the chairman said, we all may be informed of the problems that are on site down here, but just for everybody's recollection, we have Lake Hiawatha here with Lakeshore Drive and Indian Run Road, which runs parallel to that. So I'm actually going to switch over to something I colored today because it was easier to see. So this plan here, we all know the problem. The problem is that water goes screaming down this town-owned property through a stream channel, and then discharges to an existing structure that's at the bottom of the stream. There's a lot of water. There's a confluence with the water from the roadway, kind of going the opposite direction of where this water is going, and surcharges that structure all the time. So what we're looking to do and a little bit more information on actual resource areas here. This is the stream. It's heading, east to west in this direction. There's about 20 acres upstream of area that's collected and drains through this channel. Ultimately today, everything discharges through piping down to Lake Hiawatha to an existing outfall over here. So our proposed solution here is really to collect this water from the stream better, to collect the roadway water better and treat it, and then provide a little additional capacity in these pipes so that they first are not running as fast as, or the water is not flowing as fast as it currently does, and that there may be some storage in those pipes, during large storm events when there's a lot of water. So I'm going to zoom in here. Is there any questions, I guess, on the stream part of it?
That's the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon. It is a Grand.
That's about a 30-foot drop from Indian Run Drive to Lakeshore.
Yeah, there's some parts of it that are really steep. It's very narrow, so it's definitely a defined channel. I have some photos too of the actual delineation if we want to take a look at those at some point.
You've got some velocity there.
A lot of velocity. So yeah, it's the concepts that we have here, our goals are to slow this water down. And this is probably the bigger question for the commission is how do you feel about trying to slow water down within this stream? Using some sort of cross vein just to get some energy out earlier than when it meets this structure. Our intent with the actual catch basin structure at the bottom of the stream is like a high capacity structure. It's going to have like an open throat to it, kind of aimed directly at the flow path so that water can definitely get into here easily and not go into the road. Since we're considering this, cleaner water than the roadway water that's from the water runoff that's from the roadway, we also wanted to consider looking at some dry wells as a storage, as infiltration. But again, we haven't gone out there to do test pits to see if groundwater even allows that.
That was the next question.
Yeah, it's a good question. But those are the things we want to do here. So this is like what we want to do. We want to put treatment in here with a stormwater treatment unit to at least treat runoff from the roadway from, let's see, the south side of Lakeshore Drive that's flowing north. We've considered the other two catch basins that are in this area that we're replacing with new structures to also be like storm scepter type features to reduce sediment that discharges to the lake. That was still a consideration at this point. The configuration of all of this piping can absolutely change depending on how the commission feels about how much of this water we want to treat.
So
I guess I can leave it.
I think the velocity bars are a great idea.
Okay.
In the channel. Jesse, this is going to be a high maintenance system here.
Yeah, so we would certainly have to, keep an eye on it, do what we have to do to, to keep up on that, maintain it properly, but it's certainly necessary in this area. We see a lot of spillover and just repeated issues over here. Definitely a concern of ours, but at the same token, we definitely want to move forward with some sort of, way to alleviate the water surging down this hill here.
So you and this is just my own lack of experience, but you've noted the PCBs. What is a PCB?
Proposed catch basin.
Oh,
it's not actual PCBs.
That was driving me nuts. I'm like, what is a PCB? I know it's a catch basin, but what's a, okay.
Couldn't find it on the details.
Couldn't find it on the detail page.
No, it's not the PCBs that we all worry about in water.
Oh, no, I was So the red dot there, that's a proprietary mechanical structure?
Yeah, some kind of treatment structure.
Awesome.
And that's something that we'd work with Jesse on what's the best to maintain and what's the best efficiency for the kind of maintenance he's able to do.
But and not being an engineer, might it be more appropriate to move it a little to the right and
Well, there's some challenges with that because, you know, obviously the more water you're adding to this, the bigger that structure is going to
Sure.
be. The cost of purchasing and installing that structure is much larger. That's why I was also considering making these two, and I could probably, I don't know if I can just copy those now. Ooh, look at that. Making this guy over here and this guy over here, either just inlet units. So those are like, you know, traditional catch basin like, but they have the inserts in them that function with the, you know, centrifugal force to separate, mechanically separate solids a little differently. So that's another option. It's really going to probably balance out with cost. Like what is, you know, how are we going to get the most bang for our buck here? And then can we catch all of this? Ideally, we would want to capture all these catch basins into some sort of treatment unit. What we didn't want to do though, is locate that treatment unit in, you know, between the homes here.
No, we got it.
We want to keep this in the street. This is where it gets a little challenging with kind of piping configuration, because our idea here is with the green pipes, that was from the stream. So we're considering that a little different than this roadway heavy sediment water. That's why we wanted to keep those two systems a little separate. But it's definitely another alternative to look at how to rearrange these pipes, and what kind of, and what configuration of structures we can, you know, capture all of that roadway water and treat it.
So Gene, looking at the detail sheet, those sumps that you're going to be installing, the 3 structures, they were like 7 feet deep, 7 feet tall.
The sumps shouldn't be. The sumps should only be about 4 feet.
Well,
are you talking about the dry wells?
The dry well, I mean.
Yes, and it's probably not going to work with the groundwater. We recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but because I like the storage capacity availability there.
Yeah, and there's probably other options we can look at in terms of, you know, what kind of structure that is. These, you know, concrete leaching chambers, like a traditional leaching chamber, are just convenient. They're easy for the town to work with versus some of these like subsurface chambers, which are really great because they provide a real shallow profile and you can deal with high groundwater, but they're just more difficult to maintain.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
again, that's another balancing act on what kind of feature we can provide if groundwater allows us to provide it.
I think that's going to be one of the key factors. Your groundwater.
Yeah, I agree.
Jesse, is this going to be like a project that's a result of our MS4 funds?
This year, I believe, is going to fall under that criteria. Yes, correct.
It's good to see those dollars going to good use.
Yeah, definitely, certainly needed in this area here. You know, I was amazed the first time that I experienced, you know, how bad it actually is over here. It was clear that something needs to be done about it, and it was surprising that it hadn't been done just yet. So it's you know, definitely a good project.
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of opportunity here, and I think that in order to fine tune it, we're going to need a little more data, and that's field gathered data. The only other question I had was the outfall.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go next.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to the outfall, I had a quick question about you're talking about the water coming down through the stream as being cleaner. There's always, I've been out to that site, there's a lot of erosion through that, picking up a lot of silt and other debris, I would think, coming down. I wouldn't think that would be, I know it's cleaner in terms of probably, you know, hydrocarbons and other stuff than the road would be, but I would think it would be picking up a lot more fines and silts, that sort of material from that scouring in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why we're looking at what kind of measures we can put within the actual channel to slow water down, to create some temporary ponding so that if you are getting scouring, it's during much larger storm events than our typicals. You know, and I don't know if this is gonna, I don't have the data here, I don't have the viewport large enough to show you, but with Indian Run Road being you know, where my mouse is, cursor is right down here. And then there's another channel on the other side of that before it gets up to the wetland. You know, there may be opportunity to to do these same kind of measures up there to stop, to slow water down all the way along the way, I guess I could say.
Or to
We also
intercept
haven't
some
really
of the
figured out
volume.
what the frequency.
Right, and if you decrease the velocity, you're going to decrease the amount of silt it picks up
The
and can
erosion,
carry
right.
and all that. Right.
Erosion.
From
Okay,
a
thank you.
regulatory standpoint, in terms of putting in those velocity bars in that channel, based on our knowledge of what that channel actually is, I'm not seeing that as an alteration to a resource area. I think that, I mean, what you've got is a lot of rock and stone. And so, you know, if you're going to create those velocity bars, I mean, obviously we'll go out and look when you file, but I don't see that as being, I think that based on the velocity that you're getting in that channel, there's not a lot of vegetation there.
Right.
But
I haven't seen it. in
we'll take a
long
look.
time.
We haven't seen it since they built the house next to the.
Right.
Yeah, we were out there a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Well, we will definitely, we are planning to have a site walk when we do file, so.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm. So the outfall.
Oh yeah, the outfall.
Alfalfa, okay. Well, I can probably show you a picture really quickly.
What's wrong with that?
I'm not positive that's actually the one I was thinking of. I think I might have the
Well,
wrong.
that certainly looks like.
That's maybe a representative picture, I guess we could say.
Wow.
You'll see the real pictures and we'll see it for real in the field. But the idea is to replace the outfall at the same location, you know, with the idea of, you know, this new outfall will have better stormwater treatment. We won't have as much sediment in there, but I recognize we may want to remove the plume of sediment that is out here at this time. We don't have anything shown on the plans about that as of yet, because that is a complete discussion that we didn't want to just presume anything. But that's, you know, it was a small head wall, replacing the head wall that may be there that's not in great shape. Installing turbidity curtains however we need to, and then, you know, doing this in a drier condition, lower water condition.
Because we're just discussing this informally, what would be the possibility of pulling that head wall back and creating like a plunge pool with an overflow, a plunge pool which could be maintained in the event that it's silted up again in a couple of years? I mean, is that something that would be up to Jesse, I think, because. And
I'm not sure what the property, you know, being on private property, how that really works. So
is that the beach area or is that between two houses?
No, it's between residences. Yeah.
Oh, geez, okay.
And it's not an easement?
I feel like I've had this discussion.
Free drainage?
Call it.
I'm fairly certain there is an easement there. I don't have the plan in front of me right here, but I'm pretty positive when we had looked at that, there is an easement.
So if that's the case, it might, like Ann was saying, that might be, it's worth investigating. Because you haven't filed yet, and so we're thinking outside the box.
Yep. That's exactly what I wanted to get, is this kind of feedback. So this is really good. You know, I think topography is a little challenging here because it's pretty flat, if I recall. But we could definitely take a look at that, see what we can do. And I understand the reasoning why. So, yep, we'll take a look.
Any other questions from the commission or comments? It's a project that's been a long time coming. It's very necessary, and it's heartening to see some of that stormwater tax being put to good use.
Quite the it'll be quite the engineering challenge here, given the
It is.
limits given the limits, given the conditions and the limits that you have to work with in terms of space.
Well,
It's definitely a little tight, but there's always room for improvement and things like this. So
yeah.
That's awesome.
So Jean's got her work cut out for her, and so does Jesse with the maintenance.
we'll collaborate on what that looks like.
We got the easy part.
Yeah, once this gets built, I can walk away and say, Jesse, it's your thing
There you
now.
go. It's his baby.
Just one more thing, that's fine.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I think this has been really helpful for us. So thank you
Well,
very much.
we really appreciate you reaching out to us. We really do.
Yeah, it's much better to be involved in the early stages than get a filing and say, well, why didn't you do this?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Or,
that's exactly what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do that and be like, you guys hired these folks to do this job and they didn't have any brains behind it. So, you know, but I'm glad we had this conversation.
All righty.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, we
Thank you very much.
We'll be seeing you again
Good
soon.
luck.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Okay. Thank you. I think we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to ask Steve to hang around for a minute after we adjourn, if he would be so kind.
Certainly.
Okay. Any other things on the agenda?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an eventful meeting as usual. We will be getting out some paperwork for your perusal by week's end. And it's something that we want to cast an eye on because we're thinking about issuance ahead of schedule so that there are no delays. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, do we need to sign anything? You
Um,
had the Dropbox agenda had that. Or is this-
No, we just had the one thing, I think, just one thing for now, which has been. That's it.
That's
Okay,
it.
great, no problem. Just
All
wanted-
right. So we have a motion,
Second.
a second. All in favor for adjournment?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So Ariane, I'll see you tomorrow at around noon and I will hear from Noel by email on Friday morning.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, good night, everybody.